Okay.
Ready to go.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to speak. My name's Stephen Bohus. I live a few blocks away from that development. I'm a renter. I got one of these in my door. So I'm directly affected. I live in the RM4 zone, and I live in a rental building that could be sold and redeveloped at essentially any time, lot assembled, according to what staff have been trying to move forward with. So, if I could, how do you scroll to the next? This on or? Okay, so this isn't affordable to me, and I don't know who this is affordable to if you look at these figures. But 30% of 70,000 is 1,750 and not 1869 as per the staff report. So I've got the real figures there, and that means $74,760 is the starting income for a one-bedroom. I can't afford it. I don't know who can. I work in the VFX industry. I have a degree in landscape architecture. The requirement for a full waiver of CACs, if you look at the Vancouver Charter, there is no provision for low-cost housing for persons receiving assistance. And this isn't like you have 20% of the units for welfare rate. It's 100% market rental. Here's section 565 of the Vancouver Charter. The charter is not met, so I don't, and there's no CACs. If we go back and look at this entire Grandview process and look at the original emerging directions here from staff and look at the Citizens Assembly final recommendations, none of the area around this site was ever contemplated to be rezoned from RM4. It's very clear in emerging directions. It's very, very clear in the Citizens Assembly final recommendations from 2015. I'll go into that in a little bit. If you look at the final report released in June 2015, the Citizens Assembly actually recommended that we strongly recommend that the city maintain existing RM4 height restrictions throughout Britannia Woodland subarea, that's this area. And we expect the city to retain existing ratios of rental, co-op, and ownership units in the subarea, as well as maintain the stock of low-cost rental units. That's what the Citizens Assembly, that's what this whole process was about. And what ended up happening is, well, staff essentially said, we're not going to follow this key recommendation. We're going to introduce in the last minute, in the last month before the council vote, we're going to introduce this 6-story policy, pace of change. Let's allow for redevelopment of the RM4 zones. And you can look at it in this trace document. I have the link here, and I have provided the document to City Clerk for your review. There are other key recommendations in this section of the trace document. So the Citizens Assembly recommendations to preserve the RM4 were ignored. They're actually overridden by staff. So this is not a community report. This is a staff plan. And one of the things that staff put in their plan is this assurance that after 3 years, there's going to be a report back on the development and the outcomes of the activity. Well, no review has been done by July 28, 2019. So the 3 years have passed. Staff have not mentioned it, that there's a review that should be done. I believe the review should be done, and actually should be done by an independent third party and with full participation of the community to see if what they put in the plan or what they wrote into the plan actually is working. Here is this model. You can see this model, and if you look at these, this has been vetted by staff, I'm sure. It's here, and you've got all these plexiglass boxes on there. So what does that mean? Well, is that their vision to show a 6-story development on all the lots? That's a lot of displacement, because here's Gravely Street.
I'm not sure that we should be using a laser pointer.
Okay, then I won't.
Thank you.
There's Kitchener, Dharma, wonderful housing there, wonderful housing on Kitchener and Woodland. No, tear it down. Build 6 stories, at Woodland and Kitchener. There are low-income people, single mother with a boy living here, barely making ends meet, and they would be displaced. A lot of the stories that you heard 2 nights ago, they would be repeated over and over again. This is just at the edge of the lot on Grant. Here's across Kitchener, or this is Grant and Cotton. Cotton Gravely, Cotton Drive, Gravely, Grant Street, just tear it down, put 6 stories
Mr. Bohus,
here,
that's your time.
here, and here. So I would urge, to wrap up, that this proposal be rejected and the plan be revisited and the community's wishes be put into the plan. Who will pay the price? Who's accountable? And what kind of future do you want?
Okay. Councillor Hardwick has a question for you. Councillor Hardwick.
Hi. The examples that you used were tearing down apartment buildings. And in this case, we're looking at 4 single-family dwellings. Yes, they are rental, and yes, they have been reasonably short-term rental, as we've heard from the applicant. Do you think there's a difference between the apartment building examples that you used and these single-family dwellings in your argument?
Well, my big concern is that there are rentals and there are a lot of problems with this site in terms of slope. I'm sure other speakers will get to that. But the key problem that I see is that this is what people are calling a blockbuster, that this would set a huge precedent in the heart of our neighborhood, in the RM4 zone. And it's a very poor site. So any other developer could come along and say, look, you allowed this rezoning on this very poor site. Therefore, I've got a laneway and I've got more space and I want it. So I'm really afraid of the precedent, and I'm really afraid that the plan has not been reviewed after 3 years.
Your comments about the community panel and the observation that what you believed had been determined as part of that community plan and what the interpretation has been of staff, you know, them's fighting voids, you know, where I come from. How do we reconcile this? Because, again, there is a community plan, and what we're seeing in those boxes are definitely inconsistent with certainly what I'm hearing from the community as part of that 2015-2016 process.
Okay, well, how I square it is first of all, there were a lot of 7-4 and 8-3 votes, and I'm sure Councillor Carr and DeGenova remember the whole process of amendments in the last minute, and that community only had a month to review what planning brought back. And the Citizens Assembly was very clear on these parts of it. So this plan was passed by the Vision majority. I don't see any Vision councillors here. The Vision lost power. Like, the people of Vancouver wanted a change, so we brought in a change. And I think that Councillor Carr tried to refer this planning process or the vote off for more time. People were saying we need more time, and I think we need to. We've got the opportunity for the 3-year review, and it should be done.
Mr. Bohus and Councillor Hardwick, we're not here to debate the policy or if the policy is right. We're here to discuss this development.
Well, I don't want to take up my time on policy. I'd like to ask specific questions about this. The mid-block location, as opposed to arterial development for this size and scale. Are you talking about blockbusting because it's mid-block, or why would you choose that term?
Yeah, okay, well, this is a dense site, and why I say is just look at, I've got a couple of photos here. It's a very, very sloped site, and there are a lot of difficulties here. And I say blockbusting because if it is allowed here, then this would be a precedent for all of those other rentals and other units for redevelopment. There isn't anything that is in this immediate area that has been approved. There's a lot of RM4 and a lot of sensitive scale to the RM4, and I think everyone's in favor of RM4. So that's why I call it a blockbuster, and I'm really afraid of the precedent and that I could lose my housing as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.